Welcome back to another episode of Pig's Ear in Review, one of the only shows where we're talking about what we've been watching, what we've been playing, maybe what we've been reading from time to time. My name is Myshtuff. We got Riku Rose joining me as always. How's it going?
Good, thanks, mate. You?
Good, good. Not too bad on a fun Sunday morning.
hmm
So today we're going to be talking about House of the Dead Remake, which I've been playing on the Switch, then Jurassic World Dominion,
hmm
and then Tormented Souls, which I also just finished up recently. But before we go into that, just as a reminder, make sure to subscribe and comment, like all our videos. If there's any stuff that you've been playing or watching, make sure to let us know as well. Because even though we're watching all sorts of stuff and playing stuff, we can get some recommendations, and maybe we'll talk about something that you guys recommend on an upcoming episode. Or you can comment on any of the stuff we've been talking about to get your guys' thoughts as well. So definitely let us know down in the comments. All right. So to kick it off, House of the Dead remake. So
hmm
how much do you like light gun games and of stuff of that era?
I used to enjoy like Time Crisis in an arcade. House of the
Mm.
Dead always just seemed like the grosser version of that. It's sort of like,
Why?
well, it's like in like Stranger Things, the Upside Down world, where everything's just like dirty and slimy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
hmm
oh, look, they're fun cops over there at Time Crisis. I'm going to be over here.
In the real world, shooting down
Yeah.
helicopters and shit. So funny enough, actually, depending on how long anyone watching this has followed this channel, about maybe a year ago now, I think I released on, or we both released on here something, a project that I did when I basically built my own light gun cabinet. So if you haven't watched that, go check that out. It should be on the channel. Like I said, I think from last year, it was maybe like 4 videos where I basically assembled some old systems and got original light guns in a bunch of the old light gun games because I love those. Those are some of my favorite older games. And as a lot of people know, the problem with them is you can't play them on modern televisions pretty much
hmm
almost for the most part. Like anything pre, I'll say like Nintendo Wii is pretty much
hmm
like you can't play on a modern like LED TV, unfortunately, which really sucks because there's so many of those games that kind of got left to those previous generations. So you have to get an old CRT television, the big bulky motherfuckers. So when they announced, so even though I have that, which I know not everyone has, I was excited to see that they announced House of the Dead remake coming out. And in particular, House of the Dead 1 has only been on the Sega Saturn, if I'm not mistaken. So
Oh,
even the cabinet I have, I couldn't play it because I didn't have a Saturn.
I never knew that.
Yeah, yeah. Like 2 and 3 have been put onto other consoles and stuff, but I'm to my knowledge, well, sorry, other than the arcade, of course. Like there's the original arcade release, but the actual home console release of House of the Dead 1, I believe is only on the Saturn, at least originally. So now it's been remade, which is awesome. So like I said, I've been playing it on the Switch, which made sense to me given that there's Joy-Cons and you can, kind of use them like the light guns. But I think you were the one who actually sent me the other day that they are about to release it on PlayStation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and Xbox, I think, as well.
But so, like, I guess with the PlayStation, there's like the Move controllers, which could work. But is there anything like that for the
There's
Xbox?
no, but even that, they haven't used the Move controller since the VR shit on the PS4.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious how that's going to work on
I don't even
PlayStation.
know if you can hook up a Move controller to a PS5, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I don't either. So I'm curious. Well, I guess so. On that note, even on the Switch version, you can play not using motion controls and just like
hmm
aiming like a normal, like moving the cursor around. So that'll for sure be on those other versions. But I'm curious if they're going to do any motion controls for those other systems. But I guess if you have a Switch, that probably makes the most sense to play it on that version. And it's
hmm
not, I mean, not that the graphics are like the greatest anyway, so it's not like that. If you're going to a PS5, you're not going to be getting some like crazy fidelity, or anything like that. But yeah, so it's a remake of House of the Dead 1, like I said, but they throw in some other bells and whistles where it's like a couple of extra modes, I think. I haven't played through completely all of the modes yet, but at the end of the day, it's House of the Dead 1. It's a light gun game. You're on rails shooting everything. But I will say, I guess to start with the positives, yeah, it looks nice. I mean, it's updated a little bit, looks cool, but like I had a bit of a rough time with these motion controls at
Mm.
first. And so I don't know, like, have you played any other Switch games that kind of require you to point at the screen that maybe did or didn't go well,
Maybe like
or
Mario Party and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
nothing that like that's the core game mechanic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's tough because a lot of to your point, a lot of those games, you can kind of almost hold it in whatever direction for the most part, and it'll probably work fine, but, like, with this game, you have to, like, be precise into how you're holding it at
Hmm.
the screen because it's a light gun game, and so what kept happening to me at first was, like, like the aiming crosshair kept going every which way, and there's a
Hmm.
button to like reset it to make it go back to center. And even after I kind of figured out and got more used to it, I'm constantly clicking that button like all the time to keep like recentering it. And that's where like that part kind of gets a little annoying to me, to be
Yeah.
honest, because like with an old light gun, I mean, you just, even if you take it off screen and move it back, like it's right where you left it pretty much for the most part. But like with this, you kind of have to keep recentering it, and even then, sometimes it doesn't quite work. So
Mm.
I will say the controls could be a lot better, to be honest. It's like you can get used to it and you can kind of power through it, but I will say the controls could have been better. But to also be fair, I don't know how else they would do this on the Switch either, because it's not like the Wii where you have that light bar, or it's not an old CRT television. So I mean, they kind of had their hands tied a little bit, but for what they could do, I think they did okay, but it's not as like one to one as you would maybe hope for, I guess, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's this weird sort of thing where like games that use the weird systems that didn't sort of go much further are
Hmm.
sort of locked behind, like the true experience behind them.
Yeah,
Like that was a big reason why Skyward Sword didn't come out for so long was because of the way it used the Motion Plus controls.
that's a good point. Yeah, that is
You
another
know,
recent one.
and it's just sort of like they have to find a workaround, but even still, you're not getting the experience that people got back in like when they first originally played it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's even stuff like what was the fishing game? Sega Bass
Bass
Fishing on the
fishing, yeah.
Dreamcast?
Yeah.
Like, you can't really just bring that out on the PlayStation or the Switch and have that same experience again because it's just too much to. And I think that's a shame about the way
Yeah.
games work because a VHS and a Blu-ray it fundamentally work in the same way and you get the same experience out of them.
Hmm.
Put thing in box, plays on TV.
Right, right.
And like games don't really have that luxury. I remember we had like a big one for the Mega Drive, like this big light gun. I can't
Yeah.
the Super Scope thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like no, that's never been really re-released.
Yeah, and exactly. That's why like those old peripherals, I think very much have like a special place in my heart, especially with the Dreamcast. And which is
Hmm.
why, like, even though, like I mentioned, I have a light gun cabinet. Once I have maybe a little bit more time, I actually want to. I have an idea for another cabinet I want to build for other accessories where it almost purely for the Dreamcast, but I would almost make it where I have the fishing rods, the virtual on twin sticks, maybe a racing wheel, and just have or like any of those types of games like on its own dedicated cabinet to like leave it like that, because I think that would be really fun to still have those
Mm.
games accessible, because yeah, you can't really do those in a modern way, and it sucks because it is such a unique experience.
You have
So
to do a video for that, but you have to play it in character as Tim Allen from Home Improvement.
all right, I'm gonna get the tool belt. I'm
Yeah,
gonna get the plaid shirt. I'm gonna have a
I'll turn up and
sidekick.
be Al. I've got the
Yeah,
beard.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You can be Al. We'll do our best Tim Allen grunts, and it'll be perfect. Yeah, stay tuned for that. Maybe a year from now, anyone who's
Yeah.
watching this. So, anyways, sorry, getting off track. Anyways, as far as the House of the Dead remake goes, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a short game. You can beat like the main game probably in less than an hour, because I mean it's an arcade game, it's not meant to be
Yeah.
like this crazy long story or anything like that. But like I said, there are some other modes, like a boss rush mode I believe, and then like another harder mode where you only have limited credits, and then there's like special options where you can see like 3D models of the characters if you're into that sort of thing. Oh, I did for the Switch. Ah, shit, I should have brought it down. The version I got was called the Limited Edition. And the front of it comes, there's like a slipcase with like a lenticular cover that kind of moves when you move it around, but then there's also these little cardboard stand-ups that are kind of funny, like of just the zombies. So I was like, all right, that's kind of a nice touch. Oh, and some stickers that I put on my actual light gun cabinet, so I was like, all
Mm.
right, they got me on that one. So yeah, I mean, if you like light gun games, or if you really haven't had an opportunity to try them, then I think it is still worth it. I would maybe honestly wait for the price to go down a little bit. I think it's a little pricey for what you're getting,
Was it
unless
40
maybe
bucks?
yeah, it was $40. I think
Mm,
maybe 20 to 30 would have been a little bit more reasonable, and I'm sure it'll probably decrease in price at some point
yeah.
in the near future. So I would say I do give it a thumbs up, but it's not perfect. Just go in knowing that you might have to or the controls might be a little finicky to
Mm.
set up. But like I said, if you haven't really experienced this, or if you love these games, you're probably going to get it anyways. So yeah, I would say it's a fun time overall for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, over to you.
Okay, so I went to see Jurassic World Dominion.
Hmm.
Now, I told you that I was going to watch this, and you told me that you're not the biggest Jurassic Park fan.
So my experience with Jurassic Park is I've seen the first three movies a long time ago, kind of
Okay.
more or less either when they came out or short, just throughout being a teenager or whatever. And then when they decided to come out with a new one, like that first one with Chris Pratt, I was like, well, I guess I'll give it a shot. Like, I don't have anything against it or anything. I'll go watch it. And I watched it and I was like, it's fine. It was
Hmm.
okay, I guessed. And I don't know, I was kind of middle of the road, but I didn't have enough interest to then see that next one. And then now, because there was a fifth one and then this is the
Yeah.
sixth one. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'm like somewhat familiar, but not like super ingrained into the dino lore here.
So this is going to be kind of a mini review of the original Jurassic Park as well,
Oh,
because
yeah,
I
that's
would
fine.
say Jurassic Park is one of the greatest movies of all time.
Okay.
Okay, I've really been thinking about this a lot. Where I'm thinking about classic movies like
Yeah.
Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Right.
Ghostbusters, Jurassic Park, right? Because I like my wife hasn't seen a lot of them, so we sort of like have been slowly going back and watching these
Yeah.
classic movies. And I sit there and I think movies aren't made like this anymore. Like
Mhm.
all the plots and all the setups they do, they tie in together at the end. Characters have growth.
Mhm.
Like Jurassic Park's great. Nearly every character is there for a reason,
Yeah.
right? Sam Neill's character, by the end of the movie, spoilers, sort of grows up a bit and
Yeah.
is ready to become a father or like take the next step in his relationship. Laura Dern, she's unsure about whether he is ever going to grow up. Where's this relationship going?
Mhm.
Jeff Goldblum's your comic relief. Um, you've got the scummy lawyer who's there to just be a bit of like the person to laugh at.
Mhm.
You've got the Richard Attenborough,
Okay.
who's like the businessman that learns that maybe what he just because he can, he shouldn't. You
Mhm.
got Newman,
Good old white knight.
who is essentially the bad guy,
Uh-huh.
but we've talked about this recently. A bad guy who you see his point of view why he's doing it. You don't agree with him, but he's not ha ha. I'm evil. He's doing it for
Yeah.
money. He's
Yeah,
underpaid.
yeah.
He wants money.
Right.
You know, and that's a valid reason for someone to be evil is they want money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and just the plot, the way it sets up, you don't see a dinosaur for like half an hour. They
Mhm.
very are limited with what they show you to make it either more scary or more impressive and stuff like that,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a suspenseful movie. I mean, I haven't seen it in
Yeah,
a long time, but I remember, and I know the special effects were groundbreaking, and even to today, like they still
yeah,
look
it's
really
still pretty
good.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's it. Is like that movie is just like, and I've said it about Groundhog Day or Back to the Future, as I said. All of those sort of movies, like the script always seems to come first, right?
Sure.
Now, Jurassic World Dominion.
Well, wait, and sorry, really quick before we get into that. So, if a lot, I don't know how common knowledge this is, but originally it's based off the book by Michael Crichton, right?
Yeah,
And so,
very
have
different,
you?
as I understand. Yeah,
I was going to ask,
I've
yeah.
read like bits of what happens in the books, and like characters die, but then in sequels and stuff like that, right?
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right, got
Um,
it.
this is a weird like. So then I saw Jurassic Park 2, didn't like that. Didn't like Jurassic Park 3. Jurassic World, the first one with Chris Pratt,
Hmm.
I somewhat enjoyed that. It was all
Hmm.
right. It wasn't the best movie ever. Like
Sure,
I would
sure.
like maybe say Jurassic Park might be, but
Yeah,
it kind of it was one of those soft reboots that kind of
right.
made sense as well
Yeah,
because it didn't bring people in for the sake of bringing them in. I
sure.
even remember Colin Trevorrow, the director. They said to him like, "Oh, why didn't you want to bring back Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum?" And he's like, "Just to bring those characters back for the sake of bringing them back."
Mm.
would be a disservice to those characters,
Yeah, exactly.
right? I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I enjoyed that. And then Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was
Mhm.
awful.
Okay.
It is mainly set in a house,
All right.
right? Because like all the dinosaurs come off the island, so I'm storing them in a basement of this house, and he's having an illegal auction for them.
The fuck?
Now, if me and you went on to a black market to buy a dinosaur, how much would you reckon we're gonna put down for a Triceratops?
I'm gonna say a cool 5 million.
That is about how much they go for in that
Oh, really?
movie. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
right. But there's me thinking that Triceratops would go for a lot more than that. I've seen like zoos bid on pandas for that much,
Right. Yeah. Clearly
right?
undervalued here.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Good. Good.
and at the end of that movie, the dinosaurs get out into the real world, right? They release
Got
them.
it.
About
Okay.
10 of them run out of the building and into the society, and that's where the movie ends, right?
Okay.
So I'm gonna guess it's 2-3 years since that's when the last movie came out.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs have taken over the world because 10
Already?
of them got out. Yeah,
Oh, fuck.
not just the 10 breeds of dinosaurs that got out. There's
Uh-huh.
all the breeds of dinosaurs now.
Yeah.
T Rexes are loose, like, which I don't understand because, like, deploy the National Guard, they'd have this cleaned up in like an afternoon, right?
Well, yeah. Wait. So, have they like the entire world or just like one
Yeah,
continent?
they like show. No, they show like, oh, in London, and there's like a pterodactyl with a nest on like a skyscraper, and like
How do they go across the oceans that quickly? Like,
I don't
what
know,
the fuck?
I don't know. Okay, and
Come
then
on, I need the details.
Colin Trevorrow goes, you know how I said I didn't want to bring back Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum?
Right.
Fuck that. Why not?
There's three in now at this point. Why the fuck not?
Yeah, fuck it. Why not? I got a fun plot for him, I guess. So Chris Pratt's living in the woods,
Okay.
and a poacher comes along and steals. You remember in the first Jurassic World, the dinosaur, he just kept doing that too.
Oh my god, that was the
Blue.
biggest pet peeve. He's like a dino whisperer. Apparently, this
Yeah,
can just stop him from eating him. Like,
Blue.
give me a yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
that one's living in the woods near his house.
Just
That
hanging out.
dinosaur. Yeah, has a baby. Right.
Yeah, just like all right, cool. Why not?
So people come along and steal the baby.
All right.
And the little girl that was introduced in the last movie. And Chris Pratt makes a promise to the dinosaur that he will get that child back, the baby dinosaur. And the
Does he like?
dinosaur,
He like talks to the dinosaur?
yeah, he goes, "I promise I will get your child back." And then the
Okay.
dinosaur runs back into the woods.
Uh, all right.
Right? Okay, so he's made that promise.
All right. I'm
Uh,
following. I think.
right. So,
Go
so
on.
then, so then the plot sort of shifts to the original characters. Right?
All right. Okay.
Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum. Now, I'm sure we're all right. We love the dinosaurs and stuff, but wouldn't you much prefer to see a whole film about them looking into genetically altered locusts that are destroying crops across America?
Uh, I mean, I'm sure it's a very academic endeavor. I don't know how exciting of a movie that would be.
That is what this movie is about. It is not about dinosaurs.
Why?
The only
What?
tie into dinosaurs is the company that are making this genetically altered stuff. It also housing dinosaurs outside their campus.
Is this like movies sponsored by Monsanto or something?
No,
Like what?
I tell you what, it's not sponsored by is Apple because the bad guy is Tim Cook.
Really?
Yeah, like legit white hair, the glasses,
Yeah.
talks awkwardly like that sort of southern but like tech
Yeah.
sort of speak,
Hmm.
right? And the campus they go to is essentially like that Big Apple campus that looks like a
Yeah.
donut. It is
Uh,
that with dinosaurs in the middle,
That's horrifying. That's hilarious, though. Oh my
right?
god.
And
The
apparently
fuck?
this guy is meant to be the bad guy that hired Wayne Knight in the original, but they
Oh
couldn't get
wow.
the original actor back because apparently he's in prison for being a paedophile.
Oh, I thought you meant Wayne Knight. I was like,
No,
what?
no, no, no. No, Wayne, Wayne
Oh,
Knight went
sorry.
bye-bye in that movie.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. Got it.
Right.
Got it. Got it.
But this is it, this movie is not a Jurassic Park movie. It has the
Yeah.
characters from Jurassic Park.
But
Yeah.
like, but is it interesting so far? I mean, I don't. I'm like
No,
confused
it's
here
not.
what the
It's re
plot is.
Well, the biggest issue I had as well is, like, I wanted to see it on the Dolby, the big screen and all that, and
Hmm.
then, I was like, "Oh, the only showing's at 10:30," right? Which means it's gonna start at 11 with the previews. It's
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
Not another one. God
Yeah,
damn
and
it.
I'm like, "Oh, fuck, oh, fuck." So, like, we're not gonna get home until, like, 2 a.m.
Probably.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, fuck." So already you're like, "Oh, God," like, going in.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing I found about this movie is we've talked about soft reboots before, where
Uh huh.
movies sort of they try to bring in the old characters to project the new ones,
Yeah, and
but
like a passing of the torch type of
which
thing.
they kind of did with Jurassic World, the original, because they go back to the original park at one point, the
Right.
kids, and they just see like the building where it all happened and stuff, right?
Hmm.
This movie tries to do that again.
They pass it back.
Yeah, because like you have the original characters and you have the new characters. And there's
Hmm.
literally scenes where they try to say like, "Oh, he's the new Sam Neill. She's the new Laura Dern." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Okay.
but they've been in 3 movies already and I couldn't tell you any of their names."
Yeah, that is awkward too when they try to establish like these are the new people, and yeah, you like they're not memorable. I
No.
don't know if it's maybe because like not enough time has passed, or if just the movies are shit. Like I don't know.
Yeah, you've got to bring characters in and have them stand on their own. You
Right.
can't literally almost like have a scene where like Sam Neill's like, "Oh yeah, you're the new me." Like that's essentially what they do, right? Because you love those old characters and you're like,
Right.
"I don't care about these new ones."
Hmm.
Right? Sort of like Star Wars kind of did it well where they all went on an adventure with them
Hmm.
for the most part.
Sure.
And they didn't do so much of a "you're the new me." They were characters who kind of fit in the same holes, but they had still somewhat different personalities and stuff.
Yeah, similar archetypes in a general sense, but yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Don't get me wrong, those sequel trilogies had a lot of issues, but like they
Sure.
didn't literally do this. And when you don't care about the new characters as much as the old ones, I'm literally sitting there and I'm not enjoying this movie at all. And the only
Hmm.
thing I am enjoying is the chemistry of the 3 original actors working off each other.
Yeah.
I'm not even enjoying their plot. I'm just enjoying them being in the movie, which
Yeah.
was a bit of a member berries moment.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it.
You know what I mean, though? You're just sort of sitting in the theater, and I'm like, yeah, like
Uh,
it's stupid, like, but Sam Neill like not knowing how to use like a smartphone and stuff like that, and it's like that's what you loved about him in the original, that he was like this out of touch guy and stuff
mhm,
like that.
mhm.
That's fun to see, but I could have watched them a movie like a dinner with Sam Neill where they just sit in IHOP for like an hour
They just
chatting.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's sad to see that, like, I would like to hope that the creators are they're passionate, like, they want to clearly, I'm hoping, make a good next step in this franchise, but, like, yeah, if all they're just, relying on is nostalgia baiting and just all that shit, it's like, yeah, it's kinda pointless.
yeah. Also, as well, I don't know why he's still digging for fossils when there's literally dinosaurs living all over the world.
Yeah, you don't have to keep going, like, we've
Yeah.
proved that they're here.
Also, just study them ones. You're gonna learn more.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
it's just kind of sad to see. Like as I said, I watch these old movies that the plot came first,
Mhm,
and not the business came first.
mhm.
Because the idea was you make a good movie and people would see it and word of mouth would spread.
Yeah, because I guess to be honest, with with the Jurassic Park franchise, how many people are truly excited about it?
I'm
I don't
guessing a
know.
lot. A lot of people go see it. Like this is what I don't get. Like I see them because I'm always like, yeah, but what if it's good? Like what if it is?
What on the off chance it's okay?
Well, this is a franchise of 6 movies now, and I've only like loved one of them.
But and I guess once again, since I'm not as familiar with them, would you say your consensus is aligned with most people of like which ones are good versus bad, or
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. So a lot of people are 50-50 on the first Jurassic World.
okay,
I somewhat enjoyed it. It was fun. Like,
sure.
but I think everyone else agrees pretty much all the other ones are terrible or bad.
But yet they still keep making them. It's honestly
They keep
incredible.
making money. Like, at the end of the day, what were
Yeah,
those
like
like Resident Evil movies? Everyone hated those, but they made like 8 of them.
right, exactly. So it's at some point, like it's easy to blame them, the creators at least, for making these shitty movies, but then people are paying with their money to go see them. So like,
Oh, yeah.
like you can't blame them completely for keeping making them.
No, no. I mean, the thing I will blame is the. We've talked about how I find fanboyism a bit unhealthy,
Yeah,
especially of like certain franchises and stuff,
sure.
where people just will obsess and obsess over it. I like a franchise or a movie being a set amount of things and that story is told and we move on.
Hmm.
Like I keep saying it like Back to the Future, right? But if they came out with Back to the Future 4, that those 3 movies would not be as special anymore.
Isn't
What's
there
special
actually really
about
quick? Sorry, I was going to say, isn't there actually a clause that Zemeckis said that they cannot be remade until after he's dead or something like
No,
that?
he's even wrote it in his will that afterwards he wants his estate to like not make any more remakes,
Yeah,
sequels,
yeah.
anything.
That's fucking great.
Yeah, him and the guy Bob Gale who made it, right? They've like
Hmm.
both agreed on it. They put it in their wills and everything, right?
Hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, I really respect that. I really respect
Mhm.
that. I just like, as I said, if they came out with a remake or anything, it would just make it would taint that. What is
Hmm.
special is that is a solid story that they told and it is done.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, I agree, you could have done more. Like Jurassic World, I don't think it's a bad idea. What if the park did open,
Hmm.
right? Even like
Yeah.
I don't know, having like the army have a standoff with dinosaurs in like a state somewhere where they got loose. That could be cool. Like it's a
Sure.
bit like the Die Hard problem
Hmm.
where they keep trying to go bigger, but then it makes it less special.
Right.
Because the thing that everyone liked about the first one was how close quarters it was and how
Yeah,
like
there's
but
stakes
then
to it. It's
yeah.
finite. Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I would give this a massive thumbs down. Um, because the first 5 minutes of the movie show you clips of dinosaurs all around the world on the news causing
Mm.
havoc. Then the plot turns into about how locusts are being genetically engineered. And then you see some dinosaurs at the end for a bit. And then the movie ends with news clips around the world of dinosaurs causing havoc all around the world. It
So
lit-
they leave it open. I'm assuming for another one.
well, yeah, I mean, they got to make money, ain't they?
I mean,
But
have they announced they're gonna make another one yet, or
no,
no?
but I last I saw it's like made almost $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
But that's it. Is the nothing gets resolved really.
Right.
The people you knew were the bad guys at the beginning are the bad guys at the end, and no one dies, no one gets hurt. Dinosaurs are still where they were at the beginning, so nothing's even changed there. So all the setup about how they've got to fix this issue, they don't fix it; they fix another issue.
I mean, with these most recent three of these reboot ones, whatever you want to call them, have they had a overarching consistent story either, or not
Not
as
really.
much?
No, each of them have their own. There's some things that tie over from the one before that come over, but for the most part, it's each movie's its own thing, really. And you cannot like my wife never saw the middle one, like you,
Hmm.
and she understood this one fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a shame to see, I guess, because it's yeah, it's the whole nostalgia thing that they're banking on, I think, a lot of it, but then they're just making it for the sake of making it, and it seems like even though I'm sure their heart is in the right place if they're doing it, but like as far as maybe the director potentially, maybe not the company behind it, but maybe the director, but at the same time, to your point a second ago, it's just further diluting the franchise more and
Hmm.
more and more, where it's more shit than good now.
Yeah, you look at most franchises we loved in like the 80s, 90s, whatever. And it's hard to find a franchise now that you go, yeah, everything in that is good.
Hmm.
Like Back to the Future, like even like
Right.
Ghostbusters, right? I know a lot of people didn't like the second movie, but until like the first reboot came out, most people were like, they're two good movies.
Yeah. Hmm.
And now it's like the reboot weren't good, and a lot of people don't like the latest one. So
Hmm.
then half of that franchise is not fun.
Yeah, it's just like a numbers game at that point. You're just gonna
Yeah,
have more misses than hits at that point. Yeah, it sucks to see. Like, I wish they would be more intent, or thoughtful intent behind like bringing some of the stuff back and not doing it just for the sake of money. But welcome to capitalist movie industry where you're gonna keep making shit for the
yeah,
sake of making money, I guess.
yeah. Next week we're gonna reboot everyone's favorite movie. It's E.T.
Yeah. Oh God, could you
He's gonna come
imagine?
back. He's gonna
Finally came back
and
home or from
he's
home.
gonna live with Elliot's son,
Why
right?
not? Sure.
And he's gonna help Elliot find his inner child again.
Yeah, somehow Drew Barrymore's there for some
Yeah,
reason. Who knows? Yeah, it's yeah. All right. Well, good. I mean, I wasn't planning on seeing this movie, but I definitely will not be seeing this movie now. So thank you
no
for that
problem.
one.
Thumbs
If,
down.
yeah, if we can provide any service for people watching, is to save time for things not to watch. So,
Yeah, just watch more of our shit.
yeah, exactly. Like, comment, subscribe, let us know. Obviously, but
All
good. All
right,
right,
over to you again.
cool. All right. So I'm going to be talking about a game called Tormented Souls.
Hmm.
And before I do, just to gauge your prior experience, old school Silent Hill and Resident Evil games. Do you like those? Have you played a lot of them? Not, or what do you think?
I think when we talked about Silent Hill, I told you I played like an hour of the first
Oh,
Silent
that's
Hill,
right.
and that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it. Resident Evil, I've only ever played the remake of the
Hmm.
original.
Hmm.
I played that like 2 or 3 years ago. It was a bit clunky, and so I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it. It was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. So Tormented Souls, like it's really interesting because I feel like Th actually, especially in the last year or 2, there's almost been a bit of a resurgence in like, retro indie games where, like, for the longest time, it was always those 8-bit, 16-bit, platformers and stuff like that that people were making, and more recently, there's been the next wave of retro-inspired games are now, like, PS1 and N64 era with, like, those types of not just the graphics, but, like, the game styles as well, which I
Yeah.
love to see, like, I've been seeing some really cool shit with that, so I'm like, I'm
Like
all
that
for it.
Agent 64 that got announced
Yeah,
recently, and
I
yeah,
actually just played the demo of that the other day. It's great. I love it. I
yeah.
can't wait for the full one to come out. I'm super excited. Um, but it's interesting though. The reason why I bring that up though is because of course there's that thought of like, well, yeah, why don't you just make games like we used to, but like in a modern sensibility? Because then people should theoretically still love them because you're just taking what we used to love, but maybe it's a little bit easier to make them now, and maybe you could have like quality of life improvements and stuff like that. So Resident Evil in particular is interesting because up until 4, it was a pure survival horror franchise. And then
Hmm.
4 was like the one that really changed the formula, which is also now getting a remake as recently announced. But it was that over the shoulder, like third person action game. And then all the Resident Evils, for the most part, since have been more action oriented. I mean, 7 sort of rebooted it again a little bit with more survival horror, which I love, but then
Hmm.
8 is also still actiony. But either way, they're very much not the old school Resident Evil games anymore. And then same thing with Silent Hill. They were both of that same kind of era of they're influencing each other. So Tormented Souls is essentially a throwback to that old style of survival horror game. So it is you're essentially stuck in a mansion, just like the original Resident Evil. And you can do tank controls for anyone who remembers those still. So you can do free roaming a little bit as well, but it's also kind of tank controls as well. But there's also like fixed. In certain places, there's fixed camera angles, kind of like those old games, and then there's limited save slots. Like in the old Resident Evils, you have like ink ribbons to save, and it was limited, so you couldn't just save whenever you wanted. So
Hmm.
that this game does that as well. So it's very much that style of like they took that old game, but in a modern sensibility with a couple of quality of life improvements to make things a little bit easier. But it's very much of that kind of feel, but then with modern graphics and everything too. So it doesn't have that old like pixelated look or anything. It still looks like a modern game for the most part. So this is like a perfect example of what I think a lot of people wanted. Just take an old game and bring it forward. And so it I will say it is interesting how this game played because I will say I liked it, but I think this is almost people got what they were asking for, but then they didn't realize they probably didn't want it. Because there were times where
You're telling me people don't actually love tank controls, and it
I
doesn't
would
add to the horror element, and it weren't just a product of its time?
absolutely not. Blasphemy. How dare you suggest
Yeah.
such a thing? It's interesting because I can understand why people say that because it sort of does take a little bit of control out from you, so it does make it a little bit more frantic, but I would say more often than not, I just got frustrated, I guess.
Well, I
You
always
know
think, you know, the Evil Within, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
They sort of shot. They had the camera be cinematic, where they had black bars on the
Yeah,
top and the bottom, like you would a movie, right? And
yeah.
they said the reason for that is they wanted it to feel tighter and more suspenseful, right, and give it a
Mhm.
scarier feel. And I'm like, seeing more of the ceiling and the back of the character's legs is not going to make me go, "Oh yeah, now I feel safe."
I'm terrified.
Yeah. If I can't
Yeah, I
see the back of his legs, I'm shitting myself.
true horror. That's what
Yeah.
we need. So I don't want to say it like made the game worse by any means, but I was frustrated from time to time. However, and this is something if you've played tank controls, you'll very much understand where like you'll be walking down a corridor and then all of a sudden it shifts to the next area and so the camera switches, but you're holding down one direction, but when it switches it's in the opposite direction you were holding, so you kind of go backwards
Mm,
accidentally, and like every time you switch between the areas you have to like almost let go of the control stick and then like
yeah.
repress it to keep going. So I guess you could argue, oh, that's authentic to those old games, but it's also frustrating as hell. So like if they could have addressed that in some way that would have been nice. So not a fan of that, I guess. But as far as like, I guess to quickly talk about the story without spoiling it, basically what it is you're this, I think early 20s woman who basically like finds herself in this like mansion style place, and all of a sudden when she wakes up she has her eye missing and she needs
Oh,
to
I
like
hate when that
escape.
happens.
Classic. Classic, we've all been there.
Yeah.
um she wakes up and she has to figure out like what the hell's going on, and of course there's creepy enemies that are more, I would say it's interesting because like it's more Resident Evil style gameplay, but I think the atmosphere was trying to be more Silent Hill, which is cool because they're kind of then combining these two popular franchises. So I will say I think they did a neat job with like the design of the house. The enemies are generally pretty interesting, but I think the story was good, but I think it wasn't enough to like really compel me all that
Was
much.
it even cheesy like those original like horror games? Because when I think to them, like, yeah, I didn't play them a lot, but I like remember watching my brother play like the original Resident Evil, right? And the
Well,
thing,
so
go on.
yeah, sorry. No, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say the thing I think of is like the cheesy acting and like,
Hmm.
you know, it was sort of like a very horror movie of the '80s sequel type feel to it.
Yeah, like the old Resident Evils were very much like B movie horror,
Yeah,
like schlock, that type of crap, and like campiness, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong, it's hilarious and it's fun, and that's why I love those
yeah.
games. Silent Hill, I will say, I do think actually tried to take a more serious take on those stories, so that is usually less campy and goofy or whatever. With this game, very much leans into the more Silent Hill side of things. It's not
Okay.
like particularly like goofy or funny or anything like that. It's more trying to be weird and all that sort of
No,
stuff.
I've
So
not played this, but I would think if you're gonna be doing a loving homage to that sort of thing, I think you've got to
mm,
lean into its limitations and also its sort of silliness as well.
mhm, mhm.
I think if you're gonna try and do something more serious, you maybe should do it in a more serious environment than like, oh, it looks like a PlayStation 1 game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I said, the story isn't bad. It's not like the greatest thing ever, but I guess like for me, the Silent Hill games stories are just it's more about the lore and the eeriness and the uncertainty, which I think really is why the Silent Hill games were so, at least the original chunk of them were so popular. With this, there is that air of mystery, but it's not
Mm.
anything like too crazy. I don't know. It's kind of, I mean, there's some supernatural stuff in it for sure, but it's, I would say story wise, it's a like a C plus B minus kind of story. It's not the greatest thing, it's not the worst thing, but yeah, it didn't really do a whole lot for me. And then the gameplay, once again, it's very much of that era for the most part. So it kind of depends, like if you like that sort of thing, then you're probably really going to like this game. If not, then you're probably not going to like this game. So I think it's clear that this game was made for people who very much like that genre of that time and just want to see another game made of that time. And to be honest, I wouldn't be opposed to more stuff like this, but I
Yeah,
think they kind of need to take the best of both worlds, where they
yeah,
take some of the old sensibilities but still do some more quality of life improvements and like a really solid story. Then I would absolutely play more of these styles of throwback games, but if it, they just need to bridge the gap a little bit more, I guess.
yeah. I mean, when you think of nostalgia, and everyone goes like, "Oh yeah, tank controls and all this stuff," right? I'm like, you don't actually have nostalgia for playing those. Like, if you play the original Metal Gear Solid now, like for an hour, you're fighting the controller
Yeah. Hmm.
because it came from a time where we were still trying to figure out how games control and handle,
Hmm.
especially in like 3D environments and things like that, right? That's not
Yeah.
what you're nostalgic for. You're nostalgic for the feel, you're nostalgic for
Yeah.
the story, you're nostalgic for where you were at your life when you played that originally. You're not nostalgic for the fact that you had to press square to open the menu.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I said, I think it's an interesting first foray into trying to do something like this. Because I don't like. I'm just trying to think. I don't know how many other games have done this. I mean, I'm sure there's some indie games here and there that's to some extent have, but I think this is one of the more, not as that had like a massive budget, but a more common
mhm.
release that probably more people have heard of, potentially. And so I played it on PS5, but I think it's available on PS4 and PC if I'm not mistaken. But I guess I wouldn't be opposed, like I said, to maybe another one, either from this company or just another company trying to do this type of take, because I think there is value in doing it, and it is a very like that style of survival horror is definitely not what modern Resident Evil is. Those I
Mhm.
think they both have their place and they're both valuable, and I like both of them, but like I said, there needs to be a more of a bridging of the times a little bit to make it a little bit better, I think. So I would say overall, I would give it a thumbs up, but with an asterisk of like you kind of have to know what you're
Yeah.
getting into before you play it. Like just for the average player, if they look at this, oh, another cool horror game, you might be turned away with from it if you don't really know what you're getting into.
Yeah, like nothing you said compels me to be like, oh, I want to go play this because I'm not nostalgic for that genre at that
Sure.
time. Now, if you
Mhm.
said like, oh, this company's making a JRPG, like it's the
Yeah.
PS1, like I'm going to be like, ooh, okay, like
Yeah.
tell me more, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So, and that's why, and this is why I'm just interested, especially when it comes to stuff like this, whether it's the JRPGs or Tormented Souls, is like it's very clearly trying to cater to people who grew up with those games. And I think more often than not, those people will, of course, probably play them. But for someone who's more of a modern person who's grown up with gaming in recent years, I'm curious, does anyone like, do they even care about these games? Or do they, I'm sure there's a
mm,
couple of people here and there, of course, but like the general public who plays modern games, do they give a shit about something like this?
no,
I'd be
we're
curious.
old, we're fucking
Old
old,
boomers.
yeah. We're playing. Oh, this Tormented Souls reminds me of my childhood, and the kids are like, "Yeah, okay, boomer."
Well, I mean, I've also been telling you for the last like 2 weeks. I've been playing Doom and Quake on my Switch as
Yeah,
well. So like, I can't. And those games are coming up on fucking 30 years old. I can't stop playing them. So
I used to
I
play
guess
this when I was your age.
back in my day, I had to haul my monitor 15 feet up the hill. It was terrible.
Well, I don't know if I ever told you. I went to take my nephew to see the Sonic 2 movie, and in the
Uh,
credits, it looks like the Mega Drive games, And he
Yeah,
went,
yeah.
"It's the Sonic from the olden times."
Like, oh,
I was like,
no.
"Fucking olden times, you little shit."
How old do you think I am? You see my
Yeah.
cane here? Like,
Oh, yeah, when the world was black and white, eh?
yeah, back when we couldn't see color.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, yeah, like I said, overall, generally speaking, thumbs up. But once again, you got to know what you're going into. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I think that'll do it for today. Great discussion. Some good recommendations, hopefully, for things to watch and play, and things to clearly never watch and play potentially from a Jurassic World. But yeah, let us know what you think if you've played or watched any of these things. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So subscribe and comment and like and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one where we talk about all sorts of other fun stuff we've been checking out. So until
Yep.
next time, take it easy.
Have a good one.